Greetings, YouTube. I've covered a lot of topics here on my channel, and one of the ones I've touched on the lightest has been sport. In fact, unless I've been criticizing the political impact and the medical impact of, like, the NFL, I think the only sport video I've ever done was about professional wrestling and the fact that we should respect the skill that goes into it, even if we think the overall, Greek drama premise is kind of silly. You have to respect the skill that goes into that sport. It just is. It's a lot of work to be doing that kind of stunt work every goddamn time you get in the ring. But one of the things I don't do is I don't make a long series of videos about how I'm not talking about sport. Nor do I join communities of other like-minded people who don't like sport and don't talk about sport to discuss how much we don't like sport and how much we don't talk about sport. I just ignore the topic and I cover the million other topics that interest me on a daily basis, and I cover them in an endless series of videos that have filled my channel for the last decade. I mean, there's a lot of videos here. We're creeping up on 5,000 of them. I actually don't know how many there are, to tell you the truth. And I've never had a need to expound on how much I don't talk about sport and I don't like sport. I just ignore it because it isn't something I'm interested in. Now, some of you may have figured out that I'm talking about something other than sport. And what I'm talking about is the MRA movement. The men going their own way in particular, in specific, if you will. And the whole concept behind this movement is that these men have decided that they've balanced the social metrics and they've done the social algebra, and they've come to the conclusion that, dating women just isn't worth my time. Okay, then dating women just isn't worth your time. For whatever reason, you have been unable to find a means of connecting with women, even though you identify as a heterosexual man, that you have a difficult time relating to women, and you don't want to go through whatever you perceive as a hassle in the process of dating, so you will just go your own way. Bye. Just like I don't talk about sport, and I don't talk about how much I don't talk about sport, and I don't talk about how much I don't like sport. Just like I just leave that topic and I just take that topic and I go, and the topic's gone. I have a hard time finding that dilator. But the topic's just gone because I have chosen not to talk about it. And yet, the men going their own way movement talk about women all the goddamn time. It is all they talk about. It is a subject they will not release. And they most definitely will not go away. So, they either really care about women, so that's what they should change the name of their organization. Men that really care about women but can't date them. Which isn't any more awkward than men going their own way, frankly. But they don't do that because that would require self-awareness. And if these men were self-aware, they would understand that the problem with their inability to relate to women and to date women isn't with the women. That their problem is with themselves. With their archaic and outmoded ways of looking at the world, at dating, at gender relationships, their adherence to toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. their desire to remain as the dominant gender in our society, and to make sure that those darn women know their place. And somehow they can't make the connection that, maybe those really outmoded, horribly toxic attitudes are what prevents me from relating to and dating women. No, they can't make that leap, because that would require self-reflection. That would require looking in the mirror and realizing that what they see is real goddamn ugly. So rather than face that reality, they convince themselves that they're just going to go their own way. And yet they don't. Because they can't let it go. They can't just drop it and move on. Because they desperately want the attention and the affection and the sexual access that dating women affords them. But they don't want to do all the work on themselves that would allow them to actually gain the attention, affection, and a healthy sex life with women. They would rather just be bitter. And because this is the internet, and the ability to find like-minded people on any topic under the sun is readily available, they can reach out and they can find a toxic community of other men, all who want to talk about how much they don't like sport and how much they don't talk about sport. Endlessly. For years of their lives. And if it was just that, insular conversation, if it was just them bitching at each other, it would be bad enough. But it isn't. Because they point that shit show at the women of the world. And their misogynistic hate is so profound. Some of them go after women. They harass them. They cyberstalk them. They dox them. They try to ruin their careers. They become dangerous. Just as if some person on the internet who said, I'm not talking about sport for years, and this is how much I hate sport for years, decided to start harassing and hunting, literally, people engaged in sport, both amateur and professional. Now, we would think that was very silly. We would call them an obsessed fan, because let's face it, all they do is talk about sport. In the negative, perchance, but that's all they're talking about. So we should probably call the men going their own way, folks, men, I apologize, men, obsessed fans. Because they're really fans of women. They like women. They just can't have women because they're assholes. And they can't see that because self-reflection and self-awareness is difficult and painful. And they don't want to do that work. They would rather look outward rather than inward and hate the world rather than realize that all along they've been hating themselves and who they are and where they've arrived at. And they don't know how to get out. And they're surrounded by 1,000 other guys who are cheering on their hatred and also ignoring the concepts of self-awareness and self-reflection. So if it wasn't so dangerous, if they weren't so dangerous, I'd feel great pity for these men. But they are dangerous. And misogyny is often weaponized in the real world. Where men decide that, well, if these bitches aren't going to date me, then I'm going to take out these bitches. people's lives are ruined. And sometimes they're murdered. And I am sick to death of these men. So if you are one of them and you're hearing this video, if you've made it this far, get some help. Because what's going on inside your head isn't healthy. There is a way out. And the echo chamber that you've put yourself into is not helping. The problem you've got is yours. It's not the women. Get the help you need. Move on. Maybe someday you can have healthy relationships with the people that you are so desperately fans of. Because the rest of us are heartily sick of you.